There's a very particular kind of depletion I see in intuitively gifted, emotionally aware people. It's not tiredness or stress, and it's not life just being too much. It's something quieter, deeper. It's more intimate and more sacred than that. It's that sensation of feeling present in your life, but not fully in your body. The feeling of reaching for your intuition and touching nothing. It's the dimming of your inner signal, the heaviness behind the eyes, and also the sense of moving through the world without your soul fully anchored inside of you. And this isn't an emotional burnout or mental burnout, and it's not even physical burnout, although each of those may play a part. This is energetic burnout, a soul level depletion that intuitive souls and people who are connected experience when they've held too much for too long without being themselves. So today we're going to explore the 4 layers of burnout: physical, emotional, mental, and energetic. And we're doing this through a lens you may not have heard before. Not a psychological lens, not a productivity lens, but an energetic one. And we're going to softly weave this through Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because this is kind of like the standard pyramid. And we're going to use this as an energetic safety map that your body has been speaking in whispers for years. This conversation is a remembering, it's not a diagnosis. We're moving into a softening of who we really are, but not about fixing or striving. So take a breath, come home to your body, and let's begin.
You're listening to the Intuitive Mastery Podcast. Hi, I'm Kate Connolly, and with over 15 years of intuitive healing and teaching experience, I'm here to help you celebrate intuition and value authenticity to create a world where you have the freedom to live your best life. This podcast is here to teach you how to apply the principles of spirituality, healing, and mindset to have true and lasting joy, all from the inside out. This is the Intuitive Mastery Podcast.
Hello and welcome. My name is Kate Connolly. For those of you who do not know me, I am an intuitive healer and an intuition teacher. I've been working in this field for about 20 years in various different ways, but really as a very full-on intuitive healer, probably in the last 8 to 10. And I run this school called the Intuitive Mastery School. It's not really a school, it's a container where we get a whole bunch of empath starseeds, people who are really energetically aware, and we learn how to navigate the world, basically. We can find ways in which we might feel blocked around being here, about how we show up in our daily lives, how we navigate relationships and business and eating and health, and how we actually move through our lives in a very integrous way where we are connected to our soul-aligned purpose. We are tuning into our higher self every day, and we are making soul-aligned decisions on our life without needing to ask a billion people, without second-guessing ourselves, and without going into a whole pros, cons, I need to kind of doubt myself 50 times kind of way. So if you are interested in joining us, please click on any of the links below, because it is just such a beautiful container, and it does create really fantastic real-life transformations as you sit in this container. Okay. So I want to talk to you today about this concept of different kinds of burnout, but I wanted to kind of relate it into this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, for those of you who are not fully familiar about Maslow, it's a pyramid, and it starts with basic physiological needs. So, for example, food, shelter, air, basic stuff like physiological needs. And then we move into a place of having physical security and being able to kind of feel safe. And then we move into emotional connection and family and all of those things. And then as we go up the pyramid, we go into the possibility of self-actualization. So, for example, it would be incredibly difficult for someone who is really struggling to pay their bills in an abusive relationship and in a home that doesn't feel safe, to be moving into a space of self-actualization and creativity if they don't feel safe in their physical location first. And a partner of a friend brought this up as like a really kind of basic, no-brainer way of being. And I do think that there's a lot of truth to how that sits. And I think there's so much really great information in there. And I wanted to kind of weave that in to people who have an energetic and an intuitive kind of take on life, because this is kind of very physiological in lots of ways. And there's also kind of hierarchies within the energetic structures of how we show up, and how that is interpreted into our life comes across differently. So I just want to take you through some of this, because we, as intuitively gifted people or in tune people, we have different ways of operating in the world. We collapse differently to other people. We are much, much, much more aware of things outside of the five senses. We are more aware of channeling and connections and guides and purpose and taking responsibility, diving into the whys, finding out what we need to find out in order to move through into different phases of our lives. Like, we are into self-exploration and understanding of ourselves and how we fit into the world and how the world fits into us and how we actually operate. And when we have burnout situations, it feels so different than if you don't have any of that awareness. So I want to take you through the 4 different layers of burnout, and we're going to kind of describe that a little bit, and then I'm going to give you some tools on how to kind of work through those. So the first one is physical burnout. This is the body level, okay? So this is basically the collapse of the vessel. Now, we all know that we are souls in physical vessels. I hope you know that. That's my belief. That's my truth, and the truth of many, many people out there. If that doesn't work for you, that's cool. Take any of this or leave any of this. It's really up to you. This is your discernment and your truth. But if we are sitting in a place of soul based in a physical vessel, the physical vessel is very, very important, and we do need to pay attention to it and nurture it and love it, but it's still a vessel, and it's not 100% who we are. So we need to remember that this is actually the base of everything, okay? This is the foundation that Maslow calls physiological safety, okay? Our physical vessel, all right? So when we start to experience levels of burnout with our physical body, we will have deep exhaustion. There'll be heaviness or inflammation in our bodies, hormonal crashes, wired and tired nervous systems. There'll be sluggish digestion, headaches or tightness, and the sense that the body is done. Like, I just can't walk anymore. I can't do anymore. I just need to stop. Okay. So energetically, this is your body just saying, I can't hold your soul at full capacity right now. And when we get to that place, we cannot solve this through willpower. Okay. It is actually the body asking to be met. Now, we absolutely can clear that. But for the most part, we actually need to listen. And I see people ignore this all the time. I'm exhausted. I'm just going to keep going. I feel like I need to fall over, but I've still got 5 things to do. I need to eat something, but I promised myself I wouldn't eat for 4 hours, but I feel like I'm going to die if I don't eat, but I promised myself I wouldn't eat for 4 hours. And then we go into this really confusing and very, self-destructive kind of modes of behavior based on what we think we need to be doing. And as you become more and more intuitive, you do get to understand more deeply how and when to stop, how and when to eat, sleep, drink, feel into a situation, do something, not do something. But that discernment only comes through practice. So if you are really struggling with this physical level of burnout, whether it's acute or whether it's chronic. Whether it's chronic, you're almost always going to have different layers that are impacting you. So there's going to be belief systems in there. There's going to be emotions in there. There's going to be potentially karmic imprinting or ancestral patterning or curses. There's like a whole list of things that could be happening if you have long-term physical burnout. If you have short-term physical burnout from a sense of, I've just done so much today, I can't move anymore, there's some really great abilities to be able to slow down and reground yourself. So breathe for a moment, go out and touch a tree, like get your feet on the physical earth and just breathe slowly for a few minutes and give yourself permission to bring all your energy back to you. So sometimes if we can just start with that process, and then once you're actually slowing everything down, you can put one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly. And just let your breath slow until your body takes it over, until it's actually starting to breathe really quietly on its own, okay? And then you imagine the earth holding you and supporting you and carrying the weight that you're tired of carrying. And you can bring that in for yourself. And it's almost like allowing the world, allowing the universe to come in and hold you. You could ask your guides to do that. You could ask your higher self to do that, to just hold you for a moment so that you feel held, because that's when your physical body feels like it can relax and start to recover from that burnout. So that's something to try if you want to give that a go for a physical burnout level, okay? And the next one is emotional burnout. So this is where we're kind of burning out at the heart level. So it's usually here around when we're kind of feeling just overfull, the heart's becoming saturated, there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of stuff going on, and you can't seem to hold capacity anywhere. And the Maslow's layer here is emotional and relational safety. So probably like the third level up, where we're just starting to feel like we can't really relate very safely, and we're kind of struggling with that energy. That can feel like compassion fatigue, crying easily, overwhelm, taking on other people's emotions, emotional flooding, and feeling really porous, like your auric field isn't steady, like you're just catching everything that's coming into you and you're not actually able to hold space for yourself or anybody else because you're just overwhelmed. Everything just feels completely overwhelming. And it doesn't mean that there's weakness there. It just means that you've been holding too much. You haven't had space to feel. And then they're starting to get some kind of holes or crinkles in your auric field. When that happens, you actually need to really take some time out and reconnect into the parts of your body that are feeling that emotional burnout. And that might just be a scan. You could just scan through your body. And sometimes it does feel like it's in the heart space because it's an emotional overwhelm, but very often it could be anywhere. It could be in the belly. I see it in the belly a lot. It could also be in the shoulders, the neck. It could be anywhere. So do a body scan. Just really tune into your body and go, where am I feeling something? Like where do I feel a sensation? Then when you go into that body part, you can actually ask that body part, like, what are you feeling? What's happening here? What's going on for you? And you'll start to get some information. This might take a bit of practice, but it's so helpful. Ask and get some information about what that emotion is. And when you understand what that emotion is, you say, why do you feel that way? And then you give it some time to respond to you. And then you go, why do you feel that way? And you ask, you go down 2 or 3 layers of whys until you hit this sentence, emotion, energy that really hits you. It really goes into your heart space. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's it. And that part of you need to be sending compassion to. I have entire processes on how to do this, but you can also just imagine sending waves of love, light, and compassion into that version of you until that starts to ease. And when that's eased, you check back in and you go, how's that feeling now? And if it's feeling better, amazing. Do another scan. And as you do that, you usually get a slowing down of that overwhelm. Number one, because you're taking your attention into specific things that are happening through the body, but also because as you send compassion to these versions of you, the emotional noise will start to slow down. It'll start to dissipate so you can actually feel more embodied and clearer thinking. Okay, so that's a really nice way of doing that. The third level is mental burnout. Okay, so this is at the mind level. So this is where the mind simply cannot hold any more information or decisions at all. Okay, so Maslow calls this the psychological security and clarity level. Okay, so this can show up as overthinking, looping, decision fatigue, overstimulation, brain fog, that too many tabs open feeling, like I've got to do 50,000 things and my brain can't actually catch up with you. So when this happens, the intuition can become hard to hear, the mind gets louder, and the whisper of the soul gets softer. And we are so inundated with a billion different to-do lists and things to get done that this is such a common thing where we've just got like the too many tabs open. It just resonates so deeply with me and so many others because, you know, there is times where we find it difficult to slow down, stop and focus on one thing at a time. So there's a couple of different techniques that you can use around this. Number one is gather all of the things up that you're thinking and literally energetically throw them up to your higher self and say, handing over. And when you're ready, give me one thing at a time that I can deal with. I'm just handing it all over. Give me the priorities. I'll deal with one thing at a time. You tell me when, and you just tune out. You can do that. It sometimes works. Sometimes it's extremely effective. Another possible tool that you can use is imagine shutting your brain down. So you just imagine like a garage door just coming up over the top of your head. And as it comes up and over, it's literally shutting all the thoughts down. So you're not actually having to deal with all of that. Another way of doing that from an energetic perspective, which is actually a little bit more physical, is writing a whole list of all of the things that you need to do. And it's not as a to-do list. It's literally to get it out of your head and onto paper. You scrunch it up and you throw it out. This is not a to-do list. This is I need to get all of this out of my head before I think myself into a frenzy. Okay, so that can help as well. And lastly, but not least, I think if you can see a whole bunch of different things showing up, there's often an emotional anchor there somewhere. And sometimes you might be able to have that mindfulness at the time to go, wow, I'm in that place where there's just too many things. I'm overthinking, I'm looping everywhere. So number one, you can release everything that isn't yours because sometimes it's coming from other things and other places and other people. Bring everything back to you that is. Get yourself really grounded so that you are sitting in a place of energetic sovereignty. Then check to see if there's as much noise there as there was before. And if there is as much noise there, then you can maybe try some of the other things, but also have a look and see what emotion is actually kind of underneath all of that, like what's actually happening underneath it all. And then when you can find that emotion, you go back to that emotional burnout section and you go, why am I feeling like that? Right? Why am I feeling like that? Why is that belief coming up? Why is that thought coming up? Until you get to that place that really resonates with your heart and you send it love, light, and compassion. You can send it forgiveness and oneness as well. Whatever energies feel right to you to help dissipate and to kind of dissolve that experience. You may sometimes have a flashback of a childhood experience, and then you could, if you know how to do this, go into a healing session around it, or you can actually ask for help and get a practitioner to help you with that. But when you start diving and getting information, it really is quite mind-blowing how often past experiences will come up. And that's when often a deeper healing is required. It doesn't mean anything bad. It just means that you might need someone to guide you through it and to help you really heal that part of you that's still continually coming up as part of it. Now, if you don't know if that's happening for you, that's also going to happen as part of that overthinking and looping. All right. So let's say, for example, every time you go to I'm going to use a real life example. My beautiful daughter, she caught a bus once and the bus driver was extremely unhelpful, to put it mildly. She didn't 100% know where she was going. She asked the bus driver. The bus driver just dropped her off in the middle of nowhere. She had no idea where she was. She was in the wrong place. She was absolutely traumatized and beside herself by this. And she ended up at a tennis court. She was supposed to go to a netball thing. She was at a tennis court and she was crying and crying and crying. She didn't have a phone. She didn't have any means of communicating with me. And very luckily, a very kind stranger came up and called me and told me what was going on so I could, leave work and pick her up and take her where she needed to go. And ever since then, she can't catch buses. She actually finds it really, really difficult. She still does do it, but she gets a level of anxiety around it. So every time she even thinks about going to catch a bus, she goes back to that experience when she was younger, and it reignites that trauma for her. So it's one of those things that until we cleared that trauma, that original trauma for her so that she felt more comfortable catching buses, that was an energetic loop that she was experiencing. Now, we could kind of send a bit of compassion to how anxious she is in the moment, but to clear that completely, we do actually have to go back to that version, do a healing on that version and the trauma that she experienced around that, because she was terrified. She didn't know how to get anywhere and she didn't have any means of contacting someone. And it was, such a horrible experience for her. And she was too young to really understand that. She was only probably 9. And she'd never caught a bus on her own like that before. So it was a very, very big deal for her. And so going back to that experience and putting healing into it, she was actually able to really overcome that fear around buses. So it's one example of how sometimes we go into that mental looping around something and then we get really blocked on a current issue. And the only way really, in my experience, to really clear that current issue is to go back to the original one, heal that so that everything from that can heal as well. Because what happens is that we create like an energetic memory and it kind of gets locked into our body, into our DNA, and we get stuck in this mental, physical, emotional loop. And until we go in and really kind of undo that physical, mental, and emotional loop, it stays as part of our reality. It blurs the lens of our soul energy. So it's super important to, if we have these recurring things coming up in our lives, get curious and try and, if we need to, trace back if that's coming up. If it's a recurring thing that you can't clear just from what we're doing, it is worth getting a private session with somebody and working through it so that you can actually move on to the other side of that. So then we've got the fourth layer, which is energetic burnout. Okay, so this is soul level burnout. This is the deepest layer. And this is at the Maslow's highest expression, right, which is self-actualization and transcendence. But we can hit fatigue on any one of these levels. Now, typically, if we've got physical fatigue, we want to be working on that first, okay? And sometimes when we're feeling emotional fatigue, that can be a physical issue. You may need to just eat some food. You may need to just have a 10-minute break. You may need to just breathe for a moment, listen to some music, or go and touch a tree. I love trees, if you haven't noticed. But have an opportunity and a moment where you can actually reset your physiological body. Then check in with your emotions. If your emotions are still not working very well, then do some connection work in there. And then if you're going up to that mental fatigue, then do the things in that section. And then if none of those things are working and you're still feeling that fatigue, we're then going up to that peak of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we're going into a soul fatigue. It's almost like an existential fatigue. And this is very, very real for people, and it happens way more often than you think it does. So when we get to this place, it's kind of like the collapse of the subtle field, right? It's the dimming of intuitive access, and it's the quietness that feels empty but not peaceful, right? It's almost like there's a nothingness there that almost feels like a void, but it doesn't feel like oneness. So you're not really here, you're not really there. It's just kind of nothing, okay? How it feels in your body, it can feel like numbness, disconnection, loss of intuition. Like I literally cannot tune into my intuition or my higher self right now, and I feel completely lost. So that absolutely can happen. Any meditations that you're trying, they're not working, they're not doing anything, you're still kind of buzzing around and still feel completely kind of listless and not able to focus or connect in. Just a really big feeling of emptiness. You might feel spiritually offline. And I've had this at times in my career where I'm having a session with someone and I just blank out. I've actually had a session where I was so deeply fatigued and so deeply stressed, I had a micro sleep. Not proud of that. I didn't mean it, obviously, but my whole system shut down and I was kind of blanking out for a good, I don't even know how long, to be fair. I don't really know how long it was, but it was not great. And I'm really, really mindful to be so much more careful of all of my layers of potential burnout so that I never, ever get to that state again. That was probably one of my most challenging times in my life. But it can happen. When babies they go out and about and they fall asleep at one point and people go, oh, that's so cute, they fell asleep. No, that's not always a good thing. It usually means that they've had so much overwhelming information coming into their body that their body just shuts down. They just go to sleep. They cannot function. And that is not a good thing. You don't want to be getting your baby to that place. It's really important to keep them very, very cocooned and keep the amount of information coming into them actually relatively small. And when we overwhelm them, if we're facing a tiny baby out and we're going out for a few hours and they pass out after, an hour and a half, even though they're not due for a nap and even though there's nothing particularly that you're aware of, they are still probably entering some kind of body shutdown, some kind of deep fatigue that they literally can't move past. And it's the nervous system's way of saying, not too much, bang, we're off. And this can happen with adults absolutely as well. So you can have that complete and total shutdown. Sometimes you can have presence without embodiment. It's almost like you just can't focus. You're in the room, but the person has to repeat what they're saying 20 times, or you're kind of focused and daydreaming on something, but it's not really anything tangible and you're missing an entire conversation over here. So unfortunately, I have done this a few times as well, but it is just, it's basically your soul stepping back because the foundation underneath it doesn't feel safe enough to hold that energy, okay? So it's not a regression or a failure or anything like that. It's just your system asking you to meet you on your deepest layer, okay? And the reason we need to kind of really be super aware of that is because it's probably one of the most fundamental needs that we have as an intuitive person on the planet. How we relate and how we get by is all based on our intuitive channel being open and flowing and functioning. And we need to have those energetic layers of safety in order to be able to continue to do that. If you've just had a massive fight with your partner, it's going to be really hard for you to reach that top layer of soul security and fully opened intuitive channel. It's going to be really difficult. It's not impossible, but it can be really, really difficult. And I've had periods of time where I've been really stressed. And it really takes me a lot of energy to pull out of that stress and go into a channeled state. And that doesn't always happen. Most of the time, someone asks me a question, I could be driving. I could be driving and doing a session with someone at the same time. I could be talking to two kids and tuning into my higher self at the same time. Most of the time, no problems. But when I don't have any of those layers happening underneath, the physical and the emotional and the energetic, then we are actually going to have some really serious issues tuning in and being able to feel really connected into our intuitive channel. So it's super important to have that awareness of first working through the layers, right? Because all of those will create the foundation for that soul energy to be reconnected to. It's not like it's gone anywhere. We just can't reach it. It's not like our higher self goes on holidays or our guides turn their backs on us. That's not what's happening. But our ability to perceive them and connect with them and receive from them is actually very limited. So we need to kind of be really mindful that this is a really powerful thing that we need to be mindful of. So to bring it back, to bring ourselves back into our soul energy, very often we need to really super cut ties with everything around us, remove any hooks from our body, clearing our auric field really clearly, grounding ourselves back in, going through those 3 other layers of reconnection activities. And then just invite yourself to come a little closer, your soul energy. Invite your soul energy back in. It doesn't have to come all the way back in. It might just need to come nearer. But just imagine that you've got this beautiful kind of golden silk smoothing around your field, sealing the edges and holding you and holding your soul energy really safely. And as you hold that energy, if you can ground yourself back in and you invite your soul energy back in, it really just allows you to kind of recenter. I recenter people almost every time I see them, because most people have some level of soul outage, as it were. And usually that means that they've been really stressed or they've been run off their feet, and any one of those layers are missing. So physical, emotional, mental, and then spiritual. And so what we're really looking at is looking at it a hierarchical way, get our basics sorted, work through any emotions that are coming up. And that's not, oh, I feel really sad. Oh, too bad. I better be happy. No. Send compassion to the sad part. Move through the emotion. Allow yourself to really meet that emotion where it's at. Connect into your heart space. Allow yourself to breathe through whatever's coming up for you in that moment. Do not bypass. Do not ignore it. Please don't positive think your way out of that one. That's really not how we do that. Once you've moved through the emotions, you go into that mental level and allow ourselves to clear all of that overthinking. And then we can move into that soul connection and allow that energy to flow through. So basically, what we're looking at is ways that we can always reconnect to ourselves. And it isn't always a super quick, oh, I'll just, imagine roots coming out of my feet and my intuitive channel will open up. No, not necessarily. Pay attention to some of the experiences that you're having in your life. Your life is always the best mirror for you. Is everything flowing? Do you feel amazing? What's your health like? How are your relationships flowing? Is your business flowing? Like, what's happening there? Do a bit of a stock take. How am I feeling in these situations? Right? Well, am I feeling expanded? Am I feeling joy? Am I feeling love, support, like all of the things? Am I feeling all of this beautiful stuff? Or am I feeling really blocked or cranky or limited in some way? And go back to these levels. Like, am I needing some kind of physiological help here? Do I need to move through some emotions? Do I need to work on my thought patterns and belief systems? And do I need to be connecting in more greatly to my higher self because I've missed my higher guidance? I've missed the information that I need to move through my life with more ease and grace. So I hope that was helpful to you. I hope that gives you a lot of information, but also usable information so that you can, if you're feeling really burnt out, just tune into your body and check and see what's going on and find a way back into your body, because that is the most powerful and important thing that you can do to keep that channel really open and clear and to make sure that you are mastering your intuition. If you want to join us in the school, like I said, the link's down below, and I really hope you like this episode. I can't wait to see you next time.